just a matter of time before the migraines come back, or do you not feel that way?
Every once in a while I do get nervous as I'm kind of finishing up. I'm in one chapter of my life right now, and my chapter is college, and I have learned to manage college and the stresses of college. So every once in a while I do get nervous that when I have to move off and start my own life and support myself and have a job by myself working 60, 70 hours a week, whatever it is on a construction site, I do get nervous that I'm going to have new stresses in my life. But I feel comfortable and confident in myself that I know what the mitigation methods are to not have to go back to what I was living like before.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. That's a good feeling. Yeah. Ryan, talk to us about managing and mechanically assessing migraines or, cervicogenic headaches in general, for those clinicians out there who maybe are onto this method or have done a little bit of work in it, but not as much, and haven't seen many headache patients.
Yeah. So usually a migraine patient will know what their triggers are. And if they can catch it while, if they know what their triggers are and they can catch the migraine early, that's important. Most often they may not notice if there's going to be any neck stiffness, anything like that associated with it. I have all my migraine patients self-assess on a very regular basis to determine if there is any mechanical changes that are taking place. The usuals, if we do identify anything within the examination, then that becomes their usual mechanical baseline check. It's hard for most of them to try to drop everything and then do their exercises immediately to say, oh, I need to determine if there's an effect. They tend to, depending on how long they've had these migraines, there's a common kind of protocol that they go through where they say, oh, it's time to turn off the lights, take my meds. I need to lay down. I need to go to sleep. And we have to kind of reprogram them to say, before you do that, I need you to do this, because we have to, while their symptoms are active, is the opportune time to start mechanically testing them. So, and they may not know exactly what causes their migraines. They may have truly no idea how the migraines occurred, when they occurred, for what reason. I try to get my patients in while they have a migraine, or as close as I can, just so I can see it while it's active, and then determine if there's any mechanical changes that are taking place while they're symptomatic. But let's say they come in and they're not symptomatic, then I'll usually test them mechanically and say, these are the things I'm looking for. I want you to, when the next time you have a migraine, test these things and then come back and tell me all about it. So it's just like it's just an asynchronous type of data collection as opposed to immediate.
Yep. All right. And, not that we shouldn't address every patient individually and let the mechanical exam speak for itself. We understand that. But do you see patterns of, okay, I've seen a lot of migraines that respond well to upper cervical retraction or a flexion-based type of movement or protrusion, or I see just as many that are lower cervical, kind of like Hunter's, sounds like she was.
Yeah, I'd say primarily it would be an upper cervical origin, which is why as soon as I saw her pain pattern, I immediately went to upper cervical spine. I usually like to break the cervical spine up into 3 different areas, upper, mid, and lower, and then I'll test those out separately in the sagittal plane first, because that's just where we spend most of our time. So I'll go upper C flexion extension, mid C flexion extension, lower C flexion extension. I'll do various pressure tensions and pressures and loads, and determine if if I can either create it, or if they have a symptom, can I make it go away? Because sometimes to produce a symptom is as valuable as making one go away.
Yeah. All right. Talk to us about how frequent you've seen neural tension come into play and present as a good baseline test, or was Hunter's situation a little bit unusual?
Yeah, her situation was a bit unusual. I most often do not see upper extremity neural tensions with a migraine. And which is, again, when I saw her presentation, I was like, yep, upper C, no problem. We're going to retract and everything's going to be okay. And then all of a sudden, nothing happened. But the fact that nothing happened, you have to be aware that nothing happens, right? And realize that it's not about just more pressure. Give it some time. If it doesn't happen today, maybe it'll happen tomorrow or in 3 days or with sustained or whatever. There was zero effect that occurred in that moment. So, but I had neural tension to go with at that moment, and I had a loss of lower cervical extension. Mm-hmm. And we needed to know whether that had something to do with it or whether it didn't. And what really actually ended up being the thing that helped her out the most was doing cervical extension, kind of like so, with elbows on a table and pushing back and sustaining that for a little bit. We actually, during the process, we exposed relevant lateral as well. And so we had to take a little detour, reduce the relevant lateral. I can't remember which side it was, not necessarily important, but we reduced the relevant lateral. We returned to the sagittal plane, and we were able to maintain in sagittal after that, and then get her back to, she's an extremely active person. So like functional restoration and it was not a problem. She was doing it all along. She was exercising through all these things. Like you've heard, I mean, she's extremely active. So it was actually kind of nice. So something I really didn't even have to consider.
Yeah. Hunter, when Ryan went for you with on an 8-mile run afterwards to see how your neck symptoms and your headache was going to hold up, how did he do? Did he do okay?
Yeah, he kept up great.
Okay.
Hey, right. Thank you. $20 in the mail coming to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So talk about that relevant lateral for just a moment. And again, Hunter, forgive us here. We're getting a little clinical here with our speaking, but was it lateral flexion? Was it rotation? Do you tend to see a trend or a pattern?
Lateral flexion was her reductive maneuver. I recognized it because as she was extending, because extension primarily right here was everything was getting better. Tension was better, headaches were less. And then she came back one session, probably 4th session in, and it was, all of a sudden neural tension is back again. And so we tested during session and it actually got worse. Then I went to lateral flexion toward that side and went back to check median tension, and that was significantly reduced again. It changed the characteristic of it. It decreased the intensity and changed the characteristic of it. Okay. So we went lateral for just a session, probably like a week is all it was.
And then we're able to return to sagittal plane.
And then return to sagittal, and then we were able to maintain it. I think for 1 week, we had to do a combination lateral flexion followed by extension. And then after that, we got rid of the lateral and just went with straight sagittal after that.
Yeah. Sometimes when we see people who are quite active, quite mobile, who do some high intensity exercise, the reductive load might be needing quite a bit of force and even some overpressure through family, friends, or to just with the assistance of gravity or with our hands, mobilization. Do you remember if hers was such that way, that where she really had to get to end range, and it doesn't sound like that she had to really go after it effortfully. She said it was pretty easy to do that.
Yeah. Do you remember, Hunter, did I have to mobilize? Do you remember me pushing on your neck at all? Did I do that?
I don't think you pushed on my neck. I remember you pushing on my lower back every once in a while.
Right.
When we did kind of the child's pose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Up
the press up thing. Yeah.
Yep. You did that on my lower back. I don't think you helped on my upper back unless it was like on a rare occasion and you were really just focusing on my movements.
Right. Yeah. So that was when because she did have 2 separate problems. So she had a lumbar derangement and a cervical derangement. So in the process of differential diagnosis, just to make sure that we didn't have anything to worry about, that there's no myopathic signs, I needed to say, well, if I move your lumbar spine into a direction that makes sense, does it change? And it immediately made a change.
Got it. Okay.
Hear the entire episode for free on iTunes, Spotify, other favorite podcast players, or go to mechanicalcareforum.com.